Giving honor to God, our Creator, our Redeemer, and our Provider. We love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength. And we love our neighbors as ourselves as we give honor to our spiritual guides, to our illuminated Supreme Mother, Mildred Davis Miller, to His Holiness of Blessed Memory, Master Malvin Davis, to Jesus the Christ, to our Supreme Father, Marshall Davis, and our Supreme Mother, Aletha Wavina Davis Drake, to all the saints of the Spiritual Guidance Temple of Truth, to our families, friends, and loved ones, the people of all nations, to all living creatures, and to all material manifestations, I greet you with Hotep, Shalom, peace abide. And now I'll read our scripture, which is the 92nd Psalm. Sorry, I'm just trying to get some out of the way here. See, technology is beating me up today. Can't come to the psalm. Okay, the 92nd Psalm. It is good to praise the Lord and make music to your name, O Most High, proclaiming your love in the morning and your faithfulness at night, to the music of the 10-string lyre and the melody of the harp. For you make me glad by your deeds, Lord. I sing for joy at your hands, with what your hands have done. How great are your works, Lord! How profound your thoughts! Senseless people do not know, fools do not understand, that though the wicked spring up like grass, all evildoers flourish, and evildoers flourish, they will be destroyed forever. But you, Lord, are forever exalted. For surely your enemies, Lord, surely your enemies will perish. All evildoers will be scattered. You have exalted my horn like that of the wild bull. Fine oil have you poured on me. My eyes have seen the defeat of my adversaries. My ears have heard the rout of my wicked foes. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like the cedar of Lebanon, planted in the house of the Lord. They will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, proclaiming, the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there's no wickedness in him. I've read the 92nd Psalm in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Blessed Mother. Amen, amen, amen. So let's do the Lord prayer in unison. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen, amen, amen. Thanks be to God for his gift of riches. Thanks be to God for his gift of joy. Thanks be to God for his gifts of health. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. And our song is Blessed Assurance. First line is Blessed Assurance, Jesus is mine. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, first God, born of his spirit, washed in his blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Hold it. I didn't mean to do a second verse on this. So we'll go to our meditation. Please sit up erect. Our meditation is the Divine Mother prayer. So when you sit up erect, please repeat after me. O Divine Mother, illuminate us with divine wisdom. Vivify us with divine life and purify us with divine love, so that in all that we think, say, and do, we will become more and more thy children. Amen, amen, amen. And with that Divine Mother prayer, I just changed it a little bit. Normally, I just talked about me, but I wanted for this to be an us. So I was talking about us. And now we're going to go over our meditation mountain that we got from our based on one of the techniques our Supreme Mother taught us about the levels of prayer, from concentration, meditation, and that level that is prayer, and getting it mental picture. So on the level of concentration, the way you get mental picture is think on a sacred point around you. Like I said, it can be some symbol, a spot on the wall, a Bible, whatever that thing is, you're going to concentrate on it. And with each count, you're going to like repaint that picture to concentrate on it, to get you, this is to get you focused on only that one thing. But at each count, you're going to repaint that picture of that thing that you are concentrating on. So the count of 10 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, the level of meditation, I want you to think on that point that you're concentrating on, or that thing that you're concentrating on. I want you to see an influx of energy into it, energy that you can imagine seeing it, imagine hearing it, imagine smelling it, imagine touching and feeling like you feel the warmth coming from that object. It receives this energy and this insight from God, and then it is poured out to you in waves. And in each count, you see a new wave of this energy coming to you from that point. To the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And at the level of prayer, you want to close your eyes. Imagine that you are that point, that you are the point that is receiving that images from God, that you are the point that you can feel that spirit within you. You can hear it, taste it, and touch it. And you can feel the waves of energy coming into you and then shining and going out into the whole world. To our count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So thank you for joining us with today. That ends our devotion. And we're going to begin our lesson today. And our lesson today is called When You Pray. And we're looking at expanding on the concept that Jesus gave us in Matthew 6:5. So that's the 6th chapter of Matthew, the 5th verse. It says, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full." So in here, Jesus is saying that if you pray and you're just babbling, you're just praying to be seen, then when people see you, you got your reward because you wanted to be seen praying and what? And you're being seen praying. So it's telling us that what's the joy of that? What's the bliss of that when all you want to do is have someone see you do this prayer? And and this is not saying that don't pray in these places, but when you go in there and your whole idea of praying is someone seeing you praying, you're losing the effectiveness of prayer. Don't say that, I, uh, and to me, it's not saying don't pray in synagogues, don't pray in places, but what do you need to do inside to make sure that your prayer is being connected to the Spirit? That's when, because it's a hypocrite when you are, saying one thing, but you don't really have that truth behind it. That's what a hypocrite is. They're false in what they're doing. And he says, don't be like them when they're false. They're just parroting things. They're just doing it to what we would call big famous. So it's saying that praying is not about being famous. In fact, when we read from Aquarian Gospel, is not you're not trying to uh, activate God. You're not trying to wake up God when you're praying. Praying is this ardent wish, and that's what we're going to talk about. What is this difference from between having this ardent wish when you pray and being a hypocrite? How do we distinguish those two? Because like I said, in here it's going to still talk about silent prayer, but I'm saying this should be not only doing your silent prayers, but your silent prayers only help you to be able to get that ardent wish and to express that ardent wish when you have to pray out loud. Because sometimes you do pray out loud. Sometimes you do pray in a group. And sometimes with that prayer that you're doing for the group, you're trying to get that group together in harmony in the same consciousness. And this part about what is this ardent wish, it shows you that wish, if you get everyone to have that wish within them, that it's not the words, it's the wish that's important. That's what I'm talking about. What is that ardent wish that we want to have when we pray? So that's how we're going to talk about prayer. And remember, I'm not saying don't pray out loud, don't pray in groups, but I'm saying what I think Jesus is saying here is what is important about that prayer. Because even in this passage, when you go further in even this chapter in Matthew, Jesus talk about going to your secret closet, going alone and shutting the door. Um, but still, that prayer. But even when he taught, and later he teaches them the Lord's prayer, which the Lord's prayer would you do in a group. Our Father, we just did it in a group. So, what is this important thing that he's trying to get us to see about distinguishing our prayers from just being a hypocrite and having that ardent wish behind it so that prayer is powerful? So to do that, let's look at for a moment a Hebrew word for prayer. Now in the Strong's numbering system of Hebrew words, this is word number 6419. And it's called, as best I can know how to pronounce it, it is palal. Palal is the word. And the Hebrew word palal for prayer, when it's talked about prayer in the Bible, it means to entreat a judgment, make prayer, make a supplication. And it comes from a primary root that actually means to judge officially or mentally, and by extension, to intercede, to pray, to entreat, to judge or judgment, to make a prayer or be a prayer or be praying, and to make a supplication. And it's kind of strange when it says that their word for prayer actually means a judgment or making a supplication, because a supplication is when you make this again this ardent, this real definite wish to do something. And I have to talk a little bit about judgment here, because sometimes that judgment is a bit thrown off for me, because we're here in the Bible, it says don't judge, and everybody turns to say, oh, don't judge. And I think in the Bible, when it's saying don't judge, it's talking about don't condemn. And it's a different from actually making, using the power of judgment and the power to condemn. And that's why we need to think about what is the difference between saying I am judging something to condemn it, or when we use the Hebrew word for judgment, because one of the Hebrew words for judgment is also is means to vindicate. When you vindicate something, and vindicate something means when you kind of save it from its problem, is a vindication. So I here when it's talking about being a judgment, I think they're talking about when you're applying that technique of trying to find the correction to help that thing to become what it is. So saying that's the prayer. The prayer then is this intrigue, this is or this judgment or this vindication to try to make the thing its best self. So when it's talking about here, when it's talking about a difference between the judgment that condemns and a judgment that vindicates, there's a big difference. And that's what the prayer is doing. Prayer is trying to bring that thing to me to its higher self, to its best potential. And that's what the judgment is made. And many times, so that means many times when we're praying, we're trying to get that vindication, that uplifting, that even when you make a supplication, you're doing usually you make a supplication to try to get that thing to a higher state. And that's what I think this means when we're praying. How do we get our minds, our hearts, and everything into a higher state when we pray? How do you help to uplift those around you when you pray? And how to, even when you're praying for yourself, how to use it as something that's going to take you to a higher state and correct yourself in life. Are there any comments or questions so far? So now let's get to the 12th, and it's just a portion of the 12th chapter of the Aquarian Gospel. And again, this is Salome speaking to Mary and Elizabeth before they go back. And it's just before they go back into Israel because they had been staying in Egypt for a while. A period came when the all old root Herod, there was a when Jesus was born, has gone. It's a little better circumstances in Israel now, and they can go back home. And just before they go back home, both Salome and Elihu give a brief lesson to them before they go home. We're not going to go into Elihu's part of it, but we're going to go into Salome's part of it. And to me, this is one of the, uh, uh, I think, one of the most important portions of the Aquarian Gospel. There are about four chapters in the Aquarian Gospel, I think, to help get a person to understand spiritual concepts, that they are good. The 8th chapter, the 12th chapter, the 22nd chapter, and I think it's the 40th chapter give you a good understanding of spiritual knowledge from those chapters. And part of the reason is this is because of why it talks about this effective prayer. What is effective prayer in this 12th chapter? And that's what we're going to be going over. And again, this is from Salome. But let me read over, it's just one screen, so should be short, but I'm going to read over this one screen where Salome talks about effective prayer. Now, when the morning sun arose, the masters and their pupils all were in the sacred grove. Salome was the first to speak. She said, "Behold the sun. It manifests the power of God who speaks to us through sun and moon and stars, through mountains, hill and vale, through flowers and plant and tree. God sings for us through birds and harpsichord and human voice. He speaks to us through wind and rain and thunder roll. Why should we not blow? Why should we not bow down and worship at his feet? God speaks to hearts apart, and hearts apart must speak to him. And this is prayer. It is not prayer to shout at God, to stand or sit or kneel and tell him about the sins of men. It is not prayer to tell the Holy One how great he is, how good he is, how strong and how compassionate. God is not man to be bought up by praise of man. Prayer is an ardent wish that every way of life be light, that every act be crowned with good, that every living thing be prospered by our ministry. A noble deed, a helpful word is prayer, a fervent and effectual prayer. The fount of prayer is in the heart. By thought, not words, the heart is carried up to God, where it is blissed. Then let us pray. They prayed, but not a word was said. But in the holy silence, every heart was blissed. Now, most people, when you start talking about prayer, what do you mean the prayer? I'm not praying to do all these things. So look at the list of things it gives saying what prayer is not. You don't shout at God. What are you shouting at God for? You think God is deaf? So it's not the shout that is the effectual part of the prayer. And it doesn't matter where you're standing. You know, we're saying, oh, if you stand, that's better, or whether you sit. What's the difference to God whether you're standing or whether you're sitting when you pray? And it tells you that telling them about other people's sins, you don't think God already knows the sins that other people are creating? So it's telling us that that is not the effective part of prayer. Not what might help the people in their hearts, but it's not that God is going to be persuaded by the fact that, oh, I didn't know this person was doing these bad things, or you're telling me something that's that got slipped past me. These things that we, first of all, you don't have to be loud to get something to God, because God can hear very well. He's not like us, you know. We miss stuff. Sometimes we're distracted. God is not being distracted from things. So, what is this we're trying to do with prayer? Because remember, what it's saying is that prayer is actually hearts or your feelings actually talking. I think it calls what it says. Prayer is an ardent wish, and this is the ninth verse. Prayer is an ardent wish that every way of life be light. So I was saying, when you're praying, you're trying to get the light of God into every way of life. And that every act, everything that happens, it is crowned with good. That every living thing be prospered by our ministry. So we're saying that when you're praying for something, you're supposed to look for giving prosperity to every living thing. Because what we'll do is we want one group to prosper and what? And the other group to fail. And because remember, Jesus tells you to pray for your enemies. Now, I don't think he's telling them to pray for your enemies to make them successful in the wrong things that they're doing. But do you often pray for your enemies that they will see the light? That they will see the cruelty of what they're doing? That they will actually one day be able to receive their proper place in the tree of life. His mother was always said, no, everybody has the what? A right to the tree of life. And many times with your enemies, it's saying, when Jesus tells us to love your enemies and to pray for them and heap coals on them, it's not heaping coals on the coals that you're heating on them, putting on them, is actually coals to inspire them to the glory of God, the truth, the right way of living. And these things are not done, because a lot of times we think that we're putting it out there to destroy the person. We call it putting out in the universe. And we say all these mean things about people that we're putting out in the universe that somehow God comes and destroy them. God does not want to destroy everyone. God has compassion for us. And he actually wants us to try to do what? To see the light, to be the light, and to uplift people. And this doesn't mean that you have to ignore the wrong thing a person is doing and try to make excuses for it. This is not talking about making excuses, but it is talking about bringing light to situations because light expels darkness. If you can pray for the light in person for even your enemies, or pray that the light of God tries to show through, that will start to actually make the change. Not that you're telling God something, but you are actually being one of those lights, the light that Jesus talks about, a light that's not put under the table, it's not put under a basket, but a light there for them to shine. Because many times people need to know or see someone else living by this truth, living by this light, for them to be able to do it. Because the ways of the world would keep trying to tell them that no, you got to do things wrong. No, you got to be evil and nasty to other people to get things done. That's not true. And a lot of times they can't see it unless somebody stands up and saying, look, that's not true. You know, even some of the things they're doing in the state of Florida where they want to not teach Black history because it's going to make children feel bad. So what you're going to do then is you're going to not tell the children the truth and think that that's going to make a better Florida. Now, in their mind, they are actually trying to make a better Florida. But in their in their darkness, they think to be a better Florida, they have to accept all the bad, nasty things that have been done and ignore them. And somehow ignoring them is going to give their children a better chance at making a better life for themselves. Where is the better life? When you let the children in darkness. You don't make a better life for them by keeping them in darkness. You don't make a better life for them by making them think that they can just ignore things. You make a better life for them by teaching them how to deal with real issues in life. And that's what the true purpose of teaching the real history should do, is saying, this is what happened, and not that you should repeat it. We're saying they repeat it, and not that you should try to be seeking revenge on them, saying, because y'all did this, we want revenge on you. I remember one time a person was talking about, a Black person was talking about the things that they felt that they were owed by white people. And I asked him this. I said, if someone came to you and told you that your father had cheated their father out of $10, right? Someone come to you and prove to you that your father cheated their father out of $10, would you pay him the $10? And the person said, no. You would think, what? I'm not the one that cheated you. Why should, why should I pay? Now, from that, but many times when we go to white people, that's how they look at what we're doing. We're saying that something happened in the past. Some of their ancestors cheated our ancestors. Now you want me to pay you for money that the other generation did. So just saying and thinking then, because remember, $10 now is not even worth $10 now. Are you going to pay them $10 plus all the interest that they've lost? How do you go from where you are now and see if that child actually has the same attitude? It's better for that person whose parents cheated them to learn not to do people like that and to go from there. But just to say the other person paying you the $10 is going to solve the problem, and that's the big thing. Does it actually solve the problem? What is the problem was the cause by their father cheating your father out of money? It's problems that it creates now. And how do you correct the problems now? Not how you go back and pay and pay off what the debt was back then. How to be able to effectively change what is happening now. And when we look at Black history, that's what we're trying to say. Now we're trying to make a better America. Now we're trying to make America that actually fulfills the promises that democracy had for us. How, through the knowledge of what happened before and how it was done wrong, can we now make it better so that we can all live and become more prosperous? Because to me, one of the greatest problems of any type of enslavement or any type of oppression is that it actually blocks progress. It loses for everybody except a few. The biggest problem I think with oppression and slavery is you'll get a few that get and you get a lot that don't get. Now, they try to make you say, oh, there's always going to be haves and have-nots. Not necessarily. There may always be people on different levels of life, but there don't have to be have-nots. Everybody can have at different levels without making it only two levels, have and have-not. There are many levels in between have and have-not. But what you do is they make it where it's only two levels. It's the ones that's supposed to have and the ones that's supposed to have not. That's the problem of the system. That's the problem of oppression. Because to have a system where it's just haves and haves not, you've got to oppress those who have not. You're not letting them even put what they need to put into society. So it is a great and unnecessary loss by trying to make things with just haves and have-nots. So the problem is, how do you make it so that everybody can enjoy the benefits of life? And not make it and not justify oppression by saying, well, that's the way life is. It's going to be haves and have-not. Why do you think God made it where there would be haves and have-nots and then tell you that most of all I want you to be in good health and prosper? Were they lying when they said that about God? He wanted everybody to prosper. And so when we're praying, that's what it's saying here. Your prayer should be that everyone prospers. Says that every living thing be prospered by our ministry. So we should be praying that everything prosper. But remember, prosperity doesn't mean that some people get to cheat the other ones. That's not prosperity. That's oppression. When some people have it and they'll stop blocking everybody else from getting it, that is not prosperous. It's prosperity, especially when you look at even the Hebrew word for peace has a concept of prosperity behind it, but it's a concept of prosperity where everybody has received a due amount. Both sides, one time we used to talk about it as a win-win situation. Peace, the prosperity you get from peace is win-win situations. Everybody wins. Everybody gets to go off with feeling that what they have is proper. So how do we do when we pray that we make sure we have that idea of everybody can prosper? That when you have a system where everybody is not prospering, then it's actually something wrong with the system that you're using. Don't blame it on the people. It's something wrong with the system. If you have a system where you and we'll sometimes hear it in movies, and we'll kind of like believe it and said, oh, there's always going to be haves and have-nots. I think they got a thing on there. It's a series, a TV series. It's called the haves and the have-nots, and we'll accept that idea as something that has to be true, and we'll look at it and think that it always has to be that way, and not even ask yourself, why does it have to be that way? And why should we belittle the people that even have less than us to the point that we're going to say, oh, they are have-nots? And I will justify them not doing anything about them not having by doing what? Say, oh, no, that's the way life is. There are always going to be have-nots. When we should be working so that this whole world is giving us, and God has given us opportunity to work in this world and work together so that all have. Now, that doesn't mean that people who are not working should have. If they don't have because they're not doing anything, is different from you saying, oh, they're just in this class of have-nots. That is not what God wants us to do. God wanted us to provide opportunities for everyone to have opportunities to solve the problem. And many times, yes, if you're trying to solve that problem, you have to dig into it and see how can we create a society where we can everyone gets to input their full potential into the ways of life. How do we get the full potential out of everyone? And that's one of the biggest things because then they're saying, "Oh, you're talking about communism." I'm not talking about communism. I'm talking about decent life. How are you going to have a decent life when they're have-nots and you know that the have-nots are always trying to take away from the haves? How are you going to have it when you have these people who are called the have-nots? They're even fighting amongst themselves for the scraps that you've left. Don't tell me that it's a necessary part of life, that people have to fight each other for the scraps in life. And don't tell me that God does not know that this is happening and is not waiting for us to actually start expressing the light. And that's when it says with a prayer, when you're trying to say that I know God has a better way for us, I want to be a part of actually manifesting that better way because that's the way, the only way it's going to manifest is not God taking over us and making us like robots, that we do things exactly the way it is. It has to be, we have to start expressing that light. And in our prayers, that's probably the best place to start to do what? To start expressing that life, to start seeing that light in everything that we want to manifest, and seeing this connection that we have in God as an ardent wish, as a correction for the things that we see that are wrong around us and to make them better. So then saying, then how do we then use that attitude in our life? And here is saying that you can start it by doing noble deeds, having helpful words in prayer. All your prayers being helpful. And it has to be she said these things where a noble deed and helpful words are a fervent and effective prayer. So even if you just tell someone, encourage them in what they're doing, that can be a prayer. That can help them strengthen them and then glorify them so they can do it. And then in 11th verse it says, the font of prayer. And this means that the font to me is like a fountain. Where does this energy flow from? And it says the fountain, I'm going to say fountain, not just fountain, but the fountain of prayer is in the heart. And what does it mean? Okay, the fountain of prayer is in the heart. And said, by thought, not words, the heart is carried up to God where it is bliss. So what is this heart that it's talking about? It said the font of prayer is the heart. And by thought. So it says when you're praying, it should come from that inner man within you, inner person within you. And that's what makes the prayer important. Not the words you say, but what is that inner man in you striving for when you pray? Because the energy of that prayer, the energy to bring forth that light, remember we've talked about it as light, we're talking about it here as a fountain. So it's like a fountain of light that can be passed out from you if you connect up to that inner person within you. And that by thought, not words, the heart is carried up to God. So it's saying our thoughts, it is through our thoughts. Something I was studying that was, I'm going to have to do a lesson on it soon, is when we talk about the head and the heart now, it was not the same thing that they were talking about the head and the heart in ancient times. Because if you look at the Hebrew word for what they meant by the heart, and it's not exactly the way we look at the heart now, because we think of the heart as just a seat of our feelings. And if the heart is the seat of our feeling, why is it saying here by thought? Because it says the fount of prayer is the heart, and by thought, not words. Why is it saying thought? Why doesn't it say by feelings, not words? Why does it say by feelings, not words? Why does it say by thought and not words? Did they actually believe that you thought in your heart? Because remember, when you look at the Hebrew for what the heart meant, it was the inner person. It was your feelings, your character, your thoughts, and all of that was considered to be the heart. And I even looked up this passage. There's a passage where they're talking about loving God, and this is something that God first gave to the Israelites when they were coming out of Egypt. And it says, and it's called the Shema. It says, "Hear, O well, after it says the Lord is your God, the Lord is one. It says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your strength." Right? What are the difference between those three things? What is the difference between loving God with your heart, loving God with your soul, and loving God with your strength? That same passage that's in the Old Testament. That's the way it's stated in the Old Testament. When it gets to the New Testament and Jesus talks about loving God, it's a little different. It says, when Jesus says this, he says, you should love the God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Why did he have to add mind in there? Was there a difference at that time of what they would consider the heart was and what the mind was? That when Jesus said it, he did not, yes, they were speaking slightly different languages because they said that one is talking about ancient Hebrew, one is talking about a language called Aramaic, which was a sort of mixture of Hebrew and the Arabian languages and some Greek stuff. But why would they change it from in the Hebrew, where it just talks about three concepts: the heart, the soul, and the strength, to make it out of these four concepts, which still starts with the heart, but says the heart, the mind, the soul, and the strength? Why did it change the word heart to heart and mind? And I think because in the ancient days, when they said heart, they were talking about both. They were talking about both the heart and the mind. Well, when we talk about the heart, we just talk about it as feelings. And we need to wonder, what is that trying to tell us? Because if we're going to really understand how to get the inner feelings we need to pray, we need to understand from inside of us, where is it coming from? Mother Loretta, you want to say, you have something to say? Oh, I'm sorry, I need to turn mine off. Mother Loretta got the mic, so let me let her talk.
Shalom. I think when you say the heart and the mind, what's in your heart is going to travel to that mind, that the concepts that you have, because whatever's in the heart is going to make you think, and it's going to make you realize that things will manifest. And not only that, when you were talking about the light, as we grow and get older, people always say, when they see us, spiritual guidance of people from the temple, it's always something different about us. As you grow, you're going to think differently. And that light that you have that carries within is going to shine out. That's why they can't understand what makes us different. It's something different. But that light will glow from within, and they know it's something, but they can't put their finger on it. So as you grow and learn differently, because a lot of these concepts that we have now, as we were younger, we didn't think these things. As far as praying for your enemy and trying to, send them the light from the darkness, we didn't see things like that. But as you grow, even when people do you wrong, you still pray for them and hope that they come up or pull up to do better. And you encourage, even with our grandkids, our children, our kids, as they see things, we have to teach them everything that we think is right or wrong, or you see people doing wrong. You don't want to get even with them because they've done something to offend you or to hurt you. You pray for them, because you have to remember what you send out is going to come back to you. So it's always good to have good thoughts, good deeds that you have within yourself. So when you send those things out, they'll come back to you as good. And you would encourage those people when you have a friend. Friendship to me is, I have a friend and that's my friend. I'm going to be sincere to them. Even when they're wrong and you know they're doing something wrong, you say it's your friend, but you're not going to tell them that they're doing something wrong. Well, you're not a good friend, because if they can accept your friendship, you're not going to want them to do anything wrong. You want them to do the right thing, and you tell them, no, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. And encourage them and explain to them why they shouldn't do these things. Even a kind word to anyone, you could tell someone something. It is like a prayer. You don't always have to send out and pray for them. The things that you have in your mind and heart and thought as you tell them at that time that you're talking to them is a prayer, or to help them along the way. Because a lot of times you think that the children or the person isn't listening, but just give them a little encouragement, or tell them the idea that you may have had, or something that you've experienced. And that'll put it in their heart and put it in their mind to think, to try to do better or to try to make a change. And that's all I had to say at the time.
Get my internet to work right so I could bring up on the computer where it talks about the heart and mind. But Mother Loretta, you're so right that we there is, through prayer, you can impress that thought of correction, that thought of building up in that person to get them to change. And I agree with you. In our lessons, it always keeps trying to get that type of spirit built up in you to a point where you sometimes you don't even notice it, and but other people do. They see that you have a different way of processing life's challenges, because that's really what I think was the thing that Mother wanted for us. She wanted us to find these new ways of processing life challenges. So she taught us things that would help us when we meet these challenges of life. We would still have those words and thoughts and deeds that she had given us to try to connect up. Because to me, a lot of times it's just, are you connecting up to the right attitude? Are you so quick to just believe the way life they tell you life is, that uh, the big, the haves and the have not, the bigs take over from the small. Because remember, all these concepts, when you really look at biblical concepts, the Bible talks about a totally different way of life. It does not talk about cheating people. It does not talk about God wants you to corrupt people. He wants us to work in a way that what? That it will build up. Everyone is built up, and build up from even the way your words to them and your deeds to them will help to try to let them learn about this way of life that will help everyone to be lifted up. Mothers would always tell us about, we're here to help raise fallen humanity. And when you have that thought behind your process to help to try to raise people up, and sometimes you know that talking to the person, because a lot of times we think, oh, we just talk to the person, you get them right. And the sad part about when people think just talking to the person is going to make them better, they think of that other type of judgment. If I just condemn that person, when we're talking about the two types of judgments, you should have done a prayer, or the prayer type of judgments, not come around and say that type of judgment that is going to do what? Condemn the person. Condemning a person does not make them want to do better. So we need to find how can you actually make it when you're talking to people that you're actually doing a prayer. I think Mother Loretta has some more.
Thing I want to say, when you're trying to help them or you tell them some things, they might not receive that concept at the time, but you give them the feed, back that they need, or you talk to them and you tell them. Another thing, when you do that, you tell them so it'll open up so they can think about it, but you don't continue to hound them with the same thing. Once you tell a person something, that's fine. If you have to tell them 2 or 3 times, that's hounding. Let them know the one time you talk to them, you be clear. Let that sink in so they can absorb it and think about it. Once they think about it, they're going to make some changes because they have time to process that and think about it. But you don't have to beat them up, because once you do that, they're going to say, well, they're condemning me. They're getting on my nerves. They're telling me the same thing over and over. I heard what they said and I know what they're talking about, but not all the time it registers right then. They were aloof and wasn't paying attention, but they heard everything that you said. They even practice it in their prayers and do things. It's all in about them making changes to do better, because they think a little differently. They're quick thinkers. They want to do things differently in how they do, but we have to stress to them the right way to do things. It's no shortcuts. You have to come out and let them know what they have to do. Once you explain it to them and give them ideas, and not all the time you have to tell them things or hound them. Sometimes you could just sit and watch them and just in your mind's eye, you send out to them and just, God, you help them with such and such, because we can't always change things. And when you see that happening, you just send out, well, God, I'm giving them to you. Help them. And you continue to say that, and after a while, it'll be a change there. And you're looking, you say, well, when did they do that? When did they make that change? But you also ask God to help, because we can't do everything on our own. And a lot of times I say, Lord, I can't do this by myself. I need help. I need you to help them. That's my child or my cousin, my relative or friend or whom or whatever. You need to help them. I'm going to give that to you. And
Much, Mother Loretta. That was really encouraging words. And that's what we need to learn how to do when we go out. How do you give people encouraging words? And giving encouraging words that actually are mean, that I'm not saying don't tell the person the true way to be. We're saying, to me, what you're saying is you don't hound them with the truth. You don't have to hound with the truth. Because if it's really the truth, they will learn that it's the truth. When they're going through that circumstances, they'll see the truth. They will see that your advice, your instructions with them was not trying to destroy them, not to take decisions away from them. It was given to them, like it says, you're speaking from your inner heart to their inner heart. And I really believe that that's an effective way of doing it, speaking from the hearts. I think I've told this, but I used to try that when you're talking to someone, and this, and you actually try to see the sin of your heart, speaking to that person's heart, not always saying words, but just you're standing there and letting those hearts try to connect. The inner people, the inner person in you connecting with the inner person in them, not getting. And the reason the way I did this is, I was working at Florida Power Line and working in the finances sector. There was a mistake made in some kind of finances, and the way the financial department works at at that time at Florida Power and Light, there was this one girl in finance who could correct it. And everybody hated to go to her because she know people always came to her when they and then they would come down there and they try to throw their weight to try to make it seem that um this patient number, that you got I'm going to go over your head and I'm going to make you do it. And she knew that from the time she'd been there that you couldn't go over my head. You can't make me do it. So it's not responding. Smart. And so I had to go down there to try to get her to correct the mistake that had there. So when I went to her desk, she had turned away and was busy doing something else. And what I did, instead of yelling at her, hollering, I just stood back and just saying my heart connecting with her heart. That's all I did, was just stand back and say, and giving her all the time she wanted. If she wants to go and turn and do something else, you go do it. But when I'm standing here, my heart is connecting your heart. So after a while, she kind of saw that I was just going to stand there. I wasn't going to be fussing. I wasn't going to be angry. She came and asked, may I help you? And I explained to her, still thinking as my heart is speaking to her heart, and told her what my problem was and asked her, was there a way that she could help me? The girl's attitude changed. She knew what I wanted to get done. She actually started smiling back. I didn't even notice if I was smiling or not, but she started smiling back. Loretta said I was smiling. She started smiling back. She got the thing done. I went back upstairs, and you know something? They were upstairs. They knew that she wasn't going to correct it. They knew that she wasn't going to do anything about it. They knew it was going to be a problem. They knew I was going to come back in there disgusted and feeling bad, and they'll yell at me. So they thought. But they didn't know the power of, which is real prayer, connecting to the heart. It's connecting to the heart. And when you're praying, are you trying to connect to that heart, to that inner? And I was trying to pull up the page to kind of show you that in the Hebrew, when it was talking about the heart, the soul, and the strength, a lot of times we look at the heart as just being feelings. But the inner man, when you look at it, it actually has to do with, it has a part of it talking about feelings, but it also talks about the intellect. To me, when you're speaking to a person through your heart, it's actually a feeling, intellectual connection that you make to that person. And because it's both feelings and intellect, the spirit can talk to you about what? Because when I was there, I was actually thinking, the reason I thought about it is, I started thinking about what position most people would actually put this girl in when they came to her. That she had to pull away from her work to try to help, because she's supposed to be there just processing stuff. And people were always coming to her trying to get away from her work to fix an error that you made, and have people coming down there and trying to be mean and nasty to her and forcing her to, stop what you're doing. Mine is important. Mine is more important than what you're doing. I can almost feel how she had been attacked because what? I was trying to connect my heart to her heart. Her way of processing things and my things. And when she had the time, or got that feeling that, that I was not going to try to disrespect her, she turned, her attitude changed, and we would get the problem. And when I went back up, everyone would say, well, how did you get her to do it? I said, I just went down and asked. But I asked heart to heart, my inner self to her inner self. And it worked. So then when it says about, and to me, part of it is from what I learned here, that the fount of prayer is the heart. And it says that, the part where it says, in here somewhere it says, but the prayer is, and when it's in verse 5, it says, God speaks to hearts apart, and hearts apart must speak to him, and this is prayer. And so if it's hearts, then that means that that inner part of you, when you're praying, and remember, this is not just silent prayer. I'm talking about even when you have to stand before people in prayer. Are you actually using your inner man, that inner part of you, that intellectual and feeling part of you, to be able to connect up with that person? Because that inner part of you, which to us includes both for now, is considered to be what we would call both the heart and the mind, that you're using all of that and using it that other type of judgment, this other type of judgment that looks for, how do I correct things? How do I vindicate things? Not how I go back and punish the person. Because so much of what we learn in life today is we do that condemning type of judgment that wants to punish the person for what they've done in the past. And that's one of the big problems is punishing the person going to solve the problem? We often think if we punish the person, it will be better. If you beat a person for robbing, is that going to actually say, oh, now they're going to stop robbing? Even with our penal justice system, we feel that, oh, if a person does something, if we put them in jail and make them suffer, when they got to come out of jail, they're going to stop doing that thing. And is that true? They learn more about how to be nasty, or how to steal, how to cheat. When it's like we make jails like a college for criminals. Yeah, they come out being better criminals. Why are we calling a criminal justice system if we're putting somebody in something that's going to help them become a better criminal, and not wake up and say, you know something, there must be something wrong about what we're doing and how we're doing this, because all we're doing is creating better criminals. And they have to be a criminal because once you put that stigma of jail on their life, it's hard for them to come out and even find the types of jobs that they would have been available to them if they had not gone to jail. They have to go and try to change the scope of their life and change the direction of their life, because many of the things that they wanted to achieve, you have not tried to help them to be able to accomplish. Now, some people go to jail and they change their life and they get focused and they start doing things, they get in business. Because you'll find a lot of people, especially when you're talking to Black people that are in jail and incarcerated, those are some of, and I'm gonna just have to use this, some of our most brilliant minds what end up in jail. Because they're trying to use their mind, they're trying to use their inner knowledge to try to advance in life. And it's so attractive to them to be in a society that's run by corruption, to find out what? That I need to be corrupt to be able to get to where I want to be. I see all these examples of corrupt people making it big. I'm going to try it. And then they get caught at it. And then they go to jail for it. They learn more about corruption. So they come out actually thinking, you know something? All I got to do is be just a little bit slicker. Yeah, you come out a better crook. Instead of what we really want them to do is learn how they can actually use that intellect. They can actually use that drive in ways to actually prosper without cheating people. That's what we really want them to learn. That's the correction type of when we talked about the judgment of prayer, that's trying to say, how do you get that person to correct it? And it's not always easy, because you do have to let yourself, even you, the one person that's trying to help them, you have to let yourself listen to that inner spirit. Listen to that inner self tell you how to help the person. And part of it is the way you act towards them. Show them that they still are someone to you. They still are a caring person to you. That they still have something, that you see something in them that the world needs. That's the type of prayer we have, that I think they're trying to teach us to do, is that type of prayer that you don't have to go out there and condemn other people, or talk about how bad someone else is doing something. I do believe you have to talk about some of those philosophies that have got people confused, got them going in the wrong way, but always in your mind thinking that if they could just lock into that correct philosophy, they would change. Because even though I think that they're doing really strange things about education now, I really do think that they think that that's going to make Florida better. Now, a lot of times they're saying that's going to make Florida better for me because I'll have to ignore everybody else. But if you don't make it better for all, you're not making the state better. They think they're going, oh, we'll chase everybody out. Everybody's not going to leave Florida because you do stupid things. And you said, oh, we're not going to teach the children the right thing. They wasn't teaching. When I was in school, you think that the state curriculum was trying to teach us the true Black history? Even we had to learn it when you got out of school or in some other way. I remember that even the temple used to have some books that about famous Black people, and one of them I knew, and they had some stories, a story in there about George Washington Carver and other things that you have. That so we've always had to what find other ways to get the truth to our children. And you think now that we'll take it out of the school system again, and somehow it's going to be lost, somehow it's going to be gone forever, and my children would be better off because they wouldn't have learned the truth about how we can live together. No, we can live together because they don't even want to teach about Martin Luther King now. They don't want to teach about Rosa Parks anymore. Why? Because they're embarrassed by the type of philosophy that you have to get rid of when you start teaching the truth about the nation and the world. So this connecting to that heart and knowing that heart is the inner part of you that includes your intellect and your feelings and your character, because that's what it talks about. It's talking about what type of character when they would think about that inner man. What kind of character do you want to be in life? And sometimes when you think about it, what type of character do I really want to be in life? Do I want to be that character who's like the mean Scrooge character? Or do I want to be the Grinch? You know, the reason we look at these things, at movies and things out, is you're supposed to be making a decision about how you want to develop your own character. And yes, movies many times shows you bad characters, so you can say, I don't want to be that. But how many people go out in life and they actually become the Scrooge? They actually become the Grinch. I remember in my days, I didn't grow up wanting to be a vampire. But if you look at some of the movies now, they're teaching kids, oh, you can be vampires have great power. You can be immortal as a vampire. You can't go out at night, but I mean in daytime, but you'll be immortal. They'll teach you all these. You want to be a werewolf because we even had a man running for what he's running for a state senator that said that he would rather be he wanted to be a werewolf rather than a vampire because he saw in a movie where a werewolf beat a vampire. And these are the two things that he's trying to achieve in life. That's the character he wants. I want to have the character of a werewolf or a vampire. That's his choices. We need to give our children what? Better choices. How many children go and do we really tell our children, you want to be a child of the light? You want to be able to go out there and work with that light within you so that light within you can shine and it will help and affect other people so they will want the light within them to shine. That will build their character. And when we're talking to our children, are we trying to get that light within them to shine? Because God put the light within them. It's there. The problem is, will they take it from under the basket? They feel that they can let it go and let it grow. Because if we can get them to see that light within them and have that light within them can help them solve the problems we have, rather than thinking that, oh no, I got to be a vampire or a werewolf, or I got to be a monster like Frankenstein, I got to be a Scrooge, I got to be a Grinch, and that's going to make life better if, I'm this big bad bully, like in Billy Goat Gruff, where I'm the biggest goat around. And I think in Billy and Billy Goat Gruff, I think what happened is the troll waits until the Billy Goat he's against is so big he can't handle it anymore. And that's when you're a bully, that's what that's what's going to happen. You're just sitting, waiting around to what? To a bigger bully than you is going to come and knock you on your butt. Rather than thinking that we should be using our inner light to try to get other people to express their inner light. We don't want you to put the truth in the books so that your children feel bad and then reduce their striving for a better America. We want you to put the truth in the books so the children say, let's not repeat this foolish part of history again. We don't want to repeat the foolishness again. I know I was talking to my wife, and because a thought came to me, they're trying to go back to the old ways of some of the slave masters on how they work on things. And what came to me is that, to me, some of the people who were in those days where they were slave masters, and I have to say this carefully, they had, and I can't think of another word to say it, they had a better excuse for what they were doing than we have now for living like that. Because I'm still, let me say, put this part. I think what they did was wrong. I know what they did was wrong. I know they didn't do it in the right way. But with the environment of life that they were faced at that time, they had a more pressing, initiative to do it that way. Why? Because the jobs that they needed to make it grow, they needed a physical labor force to do the work. They needed people to go out there and work hard. To me, they could have done it better if they would have given the people the incentives they needed to be able to do that. But they came up with this crazy system of, okay, what we'll do is we'll make white people feel that they are privileged, and that will give us the ability to put harsher oppressions on the black people and make them do this hard labor. So there was hard labor to be done now. And when I think about today, they want to oppress people to do what? What hard labor are most people doing now? They want slaves to do what? Serve in Burger Kings and McDonald's? They want where are, if you oppress people now, what work do you want to do? Yeah, probably some of the worst jobs they have now is working in the meat packing plants. And are you really, that's what y'all are really fighting to get the people, to get the immigrants out of the meat packing plant so you can go in there and work in a meat packing plant? Why do you need an oppressive system for hard labor now? With most jobs, the machines are doing most of the hard work. You're not harvesting cotton, you're not harvesting cane. You got machines that go out there and do most of that cutting, that do most of the processing for it. What do you need to oppress people for in this day and age? So why you're trying to go back to a system that was wrong then, but did have a economic need, and try to implement it now when there's no economic need for it? It's just a social structure, a caste system that you want to keep in place so that you feel that it make your people feel better. One of the reasons that the Republican Party started, because remember, because the Republican Party that actually came out anti-slave, is that they felt that it was at a time when enslavement had actually become a problem. It wasn't economically justified anymore. They even talk about during that time, they felt that the country was oversaturated with enslaved people. And you had other people coming over here that could do the work and wanted to do the work, and they couldn't get the jobs because what? Would you change from having a person that would work for you for free for a person that you had to pay? So some of their ideas against slavery was it wasn't making economic sense anymore. And so they said, we need to get rid of the system because, and their answer to that is to be like factory workers. So it wasn't like they were trying to get people to be in higher paying jobs that had more advantages, but it was trying to say, we don't need them as slaves. We need them as employees. That's what the Emancipation Proclamation talked about, was stopping them from being slaves and making them employees, because we feel that the economic system where they're employees is more sustainable than an economic system where you make them slaves. But is that the same conditions that we're living in now, or you just want to keep up this pretense of a caste system that's based on the color of a person's skin will determine their intellect, it will determine what they deserve in life, it will determine who should be making decisions about how the government works around them. Because that's some of the things they're fighting for now. They want to be able to, we want to make the decisions in government so that we can keep some of the people some of their economic systems are old and outdated, that we want to keep those outdated systems so that those people who are rich remain at this rich spot longer, because we will keep them there because we feel that it is based on their skin color. We need more light in the way we make decisions. We need more light in saying that that's not a way to actually make the nation better, is to continue a caste system, because that we call it race, but it's just a caste system. Race is a myth. There's no scientific justification for it. There's no biological gene that you can say it's not two different type of species of people. Because if they were actually two different, if there was racist the way they said, the earlier concept that because they're different races, their children would be sterile. Because remember, that's what race, when the religion came up with race, they believed that if one person from one race slept with another person from another race, they might have children, but they would be sterile children, just like when you try to mix a horse with a donkey. You end up with a mule. A mule is sterile. And when they see, and when you look around, when you mate one race to the other race, you just get another human being. It doesn't go from horse, donkey to mule. You go from human being with human being to another human being, with all the possibilities of that. If that human being sleeps with a person who has light skin, then that person might going to have light skin. If they mate with a person that's dark skin, the skin color may change, but you're still talking about human being to human being. You're not talking about actually crossing some species like you would do if you have a horse and a donkey. They're two different species. They're very close, and because they're very close, because most animals, you can't take a dog and mate it with a horse and get anything. Those, because they're not only different species, but they're so far apart that they don't match. Even though scientifically, and it's great in science to see that they're trying to say, oh, if we can get these animals that are different species and put them together, that we will actually make these other beings, always looking for something that they can enslave. But when you're talking about all the human beings that they've classified into these races, no. You're talking about human being to human being, and they will produce what? Human beings. And each human being they create will be on that scale, no matter what, saying what color they are, it's not going to tell you how intelligent they're going to be, how strong they're going to be. It's not going to tell you any of those things. You can have a white person that is as dumb as any black person. And you can have a black person that is smart as any white person. There's no difference. It's a caste system that we're using. Now, we use it as if it's something true, but it's not based on anything but a myth. And to get over that myth, we have to start thinking about how do we correct that so our society is actually better. We're tired of our society, or even the people of our society, to me, wasting money, time, and initiative fighting against each other about what? Skin color. And to me, part of this is, what do we pour out from our hearts when we do this? Are we pouring out that we're just going to condemn the others for the things that they're doing? Or are we going to actually start putting out, our heart needs to put out, we don't want to condemn you or bring the country down. We want this country to grow. And with most black people, they want, based on the principles that they wrote in their Constitution, the real principles, we want this country to grow. But we want it to be what? Freedom and justice for all. We want all that idea of all men are created equal. Whether they believed it at the time they wrote it or not, that's how they inspired people. This is one time is what they said was better than what they did. Because they wrote it down as an inspiration by telling people these things. And when we look at it, we say, the things y'all wrote down actually would make a great country. The things y'all doing, it's only going to bring the country down. So we're saying, go by these concepts that you wrote down about freedom and justice for all. Go to the concept you had about the home of the brave and the land of the free. And you will make a better nation. But it's by trying to see how do we actually go to our hearts and send out that light, that spiritual light. And I'm saying this whether you're praying silently or whether you're praying out loud. Always think about, am I putting my inner character, am I putting my inner self and joining in with those around me so that we're actually trying to reach that light of God? Anyone else have any comments to make on that? Because I just wanted to go over this. And this was the message we used back in November when Mother was telling us about the silent prayer. I'm going to read it, and then I probably won't talk about it long because we kind of always be bringing it up, but I did want to just read it again. It says, meditate and become conscious of silence. Through silence, you can gain so much understanding and strength. Keep your business to yourself and lean and depend on the Christ within you. Once you have become conscious of the silence, you can think and feel from within. Others will not be able to overthrow you through their attitude. What you don't know won't hurt. Be still and help others through silent prayer to help themselves. Get a picture of a beautiful mountain and place it where you can meditate. Picture yourself climbing that mountain with strength and courage. Pray silently concerning your body. Think on your inner organs. Drink plenty of water and don't overeat starchy food. Let there be peace in your life. You can create peace through silence. Don't join in with others with their lower thoughts. You remain in silent prayer. Think on the spirit of love. Follow the path of the Christ, and you will walk in love. Let truth come forth regardless of how it hurts. Then forgive and rejoice in the Lord. Read the book of Hebrews, a chapter a day, burn blue candles and blue incense, use rose, geranium, all. Silent prayer. But think of these things, what she's saying about, first of all, meditate to find that silence. And what it's saying is you're meditating to find that light within you. It is not loud. It is not boisterous, but it is actually full of joy. It's like a silent joy inside of you because it says that when you find that silence, you will get understanding and strength. And that strength is what? That joy you can find inside of you. Unfortunately, most people, when they think of silence, they don't think of the qualities of the silence we're talking about. They don't think about understanding and strength being in that silence. We're not talking about a silence where it's like being in a dead room where it's nothing happening. We're talking about finding a silence that has understanding and strength in it. And part of it saying that being that silence is you can keep your business to yourself and lean and depend on the Christ within you to bring it out. A lot of people, when they have a problem, the first thing they want to do is what? Run their mouth, talk all about it. And this saying that if you find that silence, you can go within for that silence. And if the answer will come to you and you will get, because it says you will get understanding and strength through what? Through the silence, not from talking and blabbing out, through that silence. It says once you become conscious of silence, you can think and feel from within, because that's what we're talking about. Getting that silence. The same thing we're talking about, getting to the heart. Now, Mother is calling it the silence, getting to that silence within, that part within you where understanding and strength go from. And once you have that, it even says that others won't be able to overthrow you through the attitude, because that's what we get so caught up in, the person's attitude. What was the person's attitude towards us? You haven't found the silence first. You haven't found that part within you that connects to understanding and strength first. Therefore, the attitude, what? Changes you, and you start reacting to the attitude rather than reacting to the Christ. Because remember, she said this connects you to the Christ. So who do you want to be led by? The attitudes of others or the Christ within? Because to me, you don't get both. Either you're going to be led by the Christ within by connecting up to the silence, or you're going to let the attitudes of others push you around and change the way you think about things. Be still and help others through silent prayer to help themselves. So you can help even others through silent prayer, to connecting up to that silence of understanding and strength within you. You can actually send that silence out to others. And part of getting that silence within you, it says, get a mental picture of a beautiful mountain and place it where you can meditate. And picture yourself climbing that mountain with strength and courage. I think that it's even saying that when you're working with others, inside yourself, do you get a mental picture of that person climbing a mountain with strength and courage? Because so many of the problems that I see that people have, it's because of the fear within them. And you have to see them overcoming that fear within them. Yeah, yes, they come out and they look like they'll come out and they're all boisterous and they're loud and yelling and they're doing all the kind of things to kind of show that they have some kind of power. But when you really look at them, they are fearful. And you have to actually pray of them climbing above that fear, of actually coming and pray. Remember, we're talking the type of judgment that finds correction, not the one that just condemns them. That the condemnation is not going to get it. And to me, this thing about getting this picture, a mental picture of a mountain, and you meditate on it so you have it. Like we meditate on, it can be the mountain, even it can be the point that we were talking about, or it can be, if you one time, when you meditate with us doing that concentration prayer and you see it as a Bible or something, you can actually see that person reading the Bible with courage and strength. You see them doing whatever that point that you're using. And here saying, concentrate on the mountain. So you have that mountain as part of your mind so that when a problem comes, you can go to that mountain and see people climbing it with courage and strength. So it says, pray silent. And remember, I believe if you get that mountain or you get that thing that you can concentrate on, it works both in talking prayers and non-talking prayers. So I'm not saying these things say, oh, every time you have a prayer, you don't talk. There will be times you pray when you what? When you are talking. But if you don't have that mountain or that silence within you while you're talking, you've lost a lot of the effectiveness of the prayer. So it's connecting up to that inner you, that inner silence. A lot of times when you're meditating on it, you're just practicing. When you're out in life, you might have to pray out loud. But before you start praying out loud, you need to do what? Connect that Christ within you. And you connect to that Christ within you in its silence. And what you pray will actually be better. And it will have more impact on people's lives. And I think it actually last longer for them, even though if they, like Mother Loretta said, even if they don't get it at first, they may get it later. Sometimes they have to wait for the rebound of the wave, not the wave, to be able to get it. But you put it into their many times their unconscious mind. So even with this type of energy flow that you see, that light, even do that to your body, your inner organs. You drink water and don't eat so much starchy food, so you can bring peace to your life. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Oh, my sister's on the line. Hi, Megan. I just participated in a 5-day workshop that Megan gave, and I know I was talking about it to Loretta. That I think Megan has come up with amazingly effective way of adding spirituality to your life missions. So I'd like to thank her for giving me the opportunity to see that. I think that what she's done is nothing, like I said, it's nothing short of amazing. The way she's been able to take spiritual concepts and business concepts and bring them together so you can use them as an inspiration to your life, that you can use them to look at who and what you're trying to accomplish in life and use them effectively. So I was very glad that I was a part of her workshop. And for those who, and she seems to be like a great counselor on people who are being able to start businesses and getting them to actually use what I think are spiritual principles to improve their life. So thank you very much, Megan, for that workshop. Well, I'll be talking to you more about it later, but because it's a lot, but it's so many spiritual connections that I found in it that will help people to find their spiritual center as well as to use very solid management techniques to implement it in their life. So thank you very much for inviting me to that workshop, and hopefully we can get some others who are younger and starting businesses to also get a part of it, because I think what you're giving them is wonderful. So any other comments or questions? And I know Megan is having a art coming up. I'd like for us to try to think of some ways that we'll be able to celebrate for her art. But if no one else would like to speak, let me just say for our announcements that this is Women's History Month. The day started daylight saving time, so we're on a little earlier today. Our consecration will be on March the 26th. And I know my wife wanted to add that that's going to be my son's Malcolm's birthday is also on March the 26th. So those are kind of like our announcements. And again, thank you for being with us. Um, Thank you all who make donations to us in the various ways you make donations. And you can make donations to us through Cash App or Zelle through the telephone number 954-549-4713, or on our website, www.spiritualguidancetemple.org. There is a donate button that you can press and send donations to us. And through Zelle, there's two ways to send to Zelle, either through the phone number, or you can send directly to offerings@spiritualguidancetemple.org, and that will make it into our Spiritual Guidance Temple account. So thank you for your donations. Thank you for helping us to keep this ministry going. And again, I want to thank Megan for the work that she's doing, because I think she's doing a spiritual work, something that is going to advance spiritual well-being for people. And something that we can share with others to help them if they're starting a business or working to develop things. And again, if there's nothing else, or no one makes any comments, let me say, may the love of God illuminate your way. May the will of God direct you each day. May the truth of God all errors depart. And may the peace of God forever dwell in your heart. Amen. 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 I'm trying to stop this recording.